Welcome back, Guardians. My name is Easy Now and you guys are awesome, and what is awesome is some positive Destiny content. Where is Easy Now and what have you done with him? Why are you not complaining and moaning about how bad the game is? Because, you know, the game wasn't all bad. At the moment it's bad and it's a content drought. But all in all, The Taken King was a massive game with a lot of positives, and I wanted to mention some of the things that I loved about it. Now, I put out a tweet earlier at EasyNowYT. Follow me on Twitter if you haven't already. And a lot of people replied with what they loved about The Taken King. That pretty much matched up with everything I was going to say in this video anyway, and it just made me want to make this video more. So big shout outs to everyone who replied on Twitter. You guys are awesome. Thank you for your feedback. So, let's get into it. In the background you see Nightfall gameplay, which I recorded with Lady Desiree live, but the audio messed up, so I'm just using it as video in the background. But anyway, let's get into what I personally love about The Taken King. First and foremost, the new raid. Probably the most important thing for a lot of people was to get a new raid, but this wasn't just a raid, it was a better thought out and deeper raid. It required strategy and teamwork and having to find out tactics rather than just bullet sponging and shooting at an enemy. The overall structure of the raid as well, moving from fight to fight, going through the puzzle system, it just seemed more fluid and all round was just a better experience than anything we had achieved before. You know, the graphics and the music and all that as well were pretty awesome. But a massive plus to the game was the exotic weapon quests, a way to let people who, you know, don't do nightfalls or can't do raids, who don't have the time to put that much effort in, could get some good, decent exotic weapons. But for all of us as well, it gave us something to think about and also be incredibly paranoid every single daily heroic trying to figure out how to get the next exotic weapon. It put people into a competitive nature to be the first person to find something or to add information to things we already knew, and that was a lot of fun. And then you got a sweet, useful exotic weapon at the end too. The new story to the game, while it's still not perfect and there was, you know, things that weren't that great, all in all, introducing a new story that worked was just a great decision, and letting mainstay characters like Cade and Aerys and Zavala have their own input through cutscenes and, you know, talking to each other through the story missions that you're in, showing their personality. It just made you feel a part of the story. You felt immersed into what was happening around you, and, you know, on top of that, it was also comedic, and it was just a great story to have to do with The Taken King. A great plus to the game was the strike specific loot. Now, this was mentioned a lot on Twitter by a lot of people. Now, this was something I was just going to mention as, you know, just an afterthought, but a lot of people actually really felt that, you know, while strikes were limited this year and there wasn't much to do with them, the introduction of that strike specific loot made it feel grind worthy. You know, Scion Flare cloaks, for instance, they're hard to get. The more you do it, the more chance you have of getting them, and they look pretty cool. And all the armors and weapons were good looking and good weapons and armors, so it was definitely worth the grind. And although strikes didn't actually last that long, the concept and idea behind it was still a massive plus to the game. Speaking of massive pluses, new supercharges or new supers. Now, this was something that probably most people were looking forward to the most, to get new supers to do with your character. But it wasn't just give you a super and that's it. You had to work for it. You had to go through the quest line, which gave you a lot of backstory, gave you a lot of history, gave you a lot of information. You knew why this super was becoming a thing for your character. And then on top of that, the cutscene when it's activated was awesome. And then you get to have a lot of fun just going around spraying your supercharge to test it out. Very well dealt with. Great addition to the game. And I think last but certainly not least, we have to mention the Dreadnought. You know, it wasn't a new planet, which most people probably wanted, but it definitely certainly felt like a new experience, like a planet would give you. It had vast open areas, but it also had intricate little tunnels and hidden secrets to find. It gave us a lot to do in the start of the game, from finding keys for chests and trying to figure out how to open those chests if it required a certain, you know, thing to do, a certain process, to finding the calcified fragments, to figuring out runes and keys. And then on top of that, you had a mass amounts of ultra enemies that you could spawn to kill, and you had control over that. There was the hidden taken events to charge your Agonarch rune, There was the Court of Oryx that was also there. And although it didn't last as long as we probably wanted it to, we certainly wouldn't have experienced what the Taken King was about without the Dreadnought being a massive part of it when it comes to the raid, when it comes to patrol, when it comes to story mission. It was all based around the Dreadnought. I think it was really well designed. I think it looked awesome, it looked cool, it looked unique. So it definitely worked within the game. But those are just my opinions and a couple of people's opinions on Twitter. Let me know in the comment section if you would add anything to that list. Let me know what you loved about the Taken King and maybe what you would like to see expanded on for future games and DLC and events. Hit the comment section hard, hit the like button if you wish to, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.